We've heard a lot of statistics about growth. The IMF reforecast figures 5.5% this year, probably 6% next year. Yields improving in Africa. Are investors bullish about Africa?
Certainly Actis is, I can confirm that. I can't speak for everybody. But yes, I think it is still a positive story. And clearly we've all got some challenges ahead of us to play our part. Yeah. But the trend and the direction, I think, remains positive, yes.
Let's get some clarity here, because there were some controversies in the CNBC debate yesterday on South-South relations and whether or not there are benefits now to increased emerging market cooperation. We talk about partnership in very diplomatic terms, but is it still competition for funding and financing? Certainly there is a view that when investors weigh up taking their investments to Africa or taking them to Asia, there's still a bias for Asia.
I think there's interest in all parts of the world. I thought it was a great debate that I was part of it. Let me make 3 points on that debate, the South-South debate. First of all, isn't it great that we're now debating who's gaining most from the trade flows from an African point of view? 5 years ago, we would have been debating politics, messed up elections, civil war problems, but we're not. We're now moving towards what the OECD debate, which is who's benefiting from trade flows. So I think that was one of my observations. That's really great progress. Right. I think my second point is that all trade flows are good. China, Africa, from our point of view, we invest in China, we invest in India, we invest in Africa, we invest in Brazil. So we're in all these markets. We see all of this happening. China, Africa, I think, is more skewed towards resources and is still more government to government up to a point. What we are very interested in is India, Africa. We invest in both markets, and we see that a bit more private sector to private sector, consumer businesses, industrial manufacturing businesses. We are helping our African companies go to India and Indian companies go to Africa. That's particularly exciting.
I'd like to build on this issue because, you know, there is a sense that although FDI figures have improved for Africa by about 87%, broadly speaking, it's still a very small component of money that's coming into the emerging market space. And the reason is, why is that? Only about 4% of global FDI is coming to Africa. A big chunk, over $150 billion, has gone to Asia, which supports this view that Asia is still seen as more attractive.
Now, I understand that, and your point is right, that it is competitive. And Africa has to compete. The point I want to make is that we are making progress. We're coming off a very poor base in terms of trade competitiveness and flows, but we're making progress. For me, it's about keeping that progress going and accelerating it. What can we all do as investors, as governments, as companies to accelerate the great progress of the last few years?
What do they need to do? A lot has been said about the infrastructure deficit. A lot has been said about streamlining the regulatory environment. A lot has been said about getting the capital markets to work better.
And I agree with all of that. In fact, I've just been on a panel talking about exactly that subject. I think all of those are right. But again, there's progress. Look at what Nigeria has done the last couple of years in terms of improving its regulatory environment. The central bank, the SEC, the stock exchange. Phenomenal. I think it's one of the most important things that has happened in Nigeria the last few years in terms of economic development. If you look at infrastructure, we are a big infrastructure investor in Africa, power stations, transmission, and so on. Governments have to enable that. They've got to create the right regulatory environment, they've got to create the right off-take pricing, the right cost-reflective tariffs, they've got to make sure the process is corruption-free. So everyone has to play their part. It all has to fit together.
When you look at Africa, obviously we're not a monolith, we're different regions with different characteristics. Which are the hotspots? I mean, we hear that there's 7 of the fastest growing economies are in Africa, and it's countries like Angola, Ethiopia, Eritrea, Rwanda. But when you look at where investors really want yield, Angola probably, Nigeria, traditional markets like South Africa and Egypt.
I think it depends what your investment perspective is, Lerato, because, for example, Angola, yes, it's fast growth, but it's coming off a relatively low base, and it's skewed predominantly towards oil and gas, and that's spilling into real estate. It's not a fully diversified economy. Arguably, Nigeria has got some of the similar challenges. So from our point of view, we've got over $1.5 billion in Africa in 18 countries. We look for a more diversified economy. We invest in financial services, in consumer businesses, in manufacturing businesses. those countries which are more diversified for a wider investor, South Africa, Nigeria, Egypt, Ghana, the East African community, Tunisia, I think those are very exciting and remain very exciting. Some of the more emerging economies, Ethiopia, Angola, and so on, I think their challenge is to see how fast they can diversify their economy.